My name is Sophia, and I'm 26 years old. When people look at me now, they see someone who owns a house, runs a business that makes over $1 million, and lives a calm, stable life. But what they don't see is how quiet and difficult the beginning really was. I didn't come from wealth, and I didn't have anyone guiding me step by step. I had to build everything on my own, slowly and sometimes painfully, learning as I went. I grew up in a small, old house on the edge of a quiet town in Europe. The house had faded blue walls, a narrow staircase that creaked at night, and a small kitchen where my mother spent most of her time. It wasn't a bad home, but it never felt warm to me, not because of the place, but because of how I was treated in it. My parents were always focused on my older sister, Elena. She was everything they admired: confident, social, and always dreaming big. I was the opposite: quiet, careful, and always thinking about the future. Elena never had to worry about money. When she wanted something, my parents found a way to give it to her. I remember the day she told everyone she was going to study in America. My parents were so proud, smiling like she had already achieved something great. They paid for her tuition, her apartment, even her travel. I stood there, listening, wondering what it would feel like to have that kind of support. When it was my turn to talk about my plans, the room felt different. I said I wanted to study too, but I would need help. My father looked at me and said, "You're strong, Sophia. You'll manage." And that was it. That was the moment I understood that I was on my own. I took out student loans and moved into a tiny rented room in the city. It was nothing like Elena's life in America. My room had a single bed, a small desk, and a window that barely let in sunlight. In winter, it was so cold that I had to sleep wearing 2 jackets. I worked part-time during the day and studied at night. Some weeks, I barely had enough money for food, but I never told anyone. I didn't want their pity, and I knew I wouldn't get their help anyway. During those long nights, I started teaching myself new skills online. I learned simple things at first: how to design, how to write better, how to understand business. It wasn't easy, and most of the time I felt like I was failing. But I kept going because I had no other choice. Slowly, those small efforts started to grow into something bigger. By the time I finished my studies, I wasn't just surviving anymore, I was building something. Looking back now, I realized that those quiet, lonely years shaped everything I am today. While Elena was living comfortably, I was learning how to stand on my own. I didn't know it then, but those struggles were the foundation of everything that came next. And one day, they would be the reason I refused to give up, no matter who stood against me. A time when my life finally felt stable. After years of struggle, I had built something real. My business was growing faster than I expected, bringing in more than $80,000 a month. I had paid off every dollar of my student loans, and for the first time in my life, I wasn't worried about money. I had even bought my own house in a quiet part of Europe, a simple but beautiful place with white walls, wide windows, and a small garden where I could sit in the evenings and breathe. It wasn't just a house to me. It was proof that I had made it on my own. I remember one evening clearly. I was sitting in my living room, laptop open, reviewing client projects, when my phone rang. It was my mother. We didn't talk often, so I knew something was wrong the moment I saw her name. Her voice sounded different, shaky, almost nervous. She didn't waste time with small talk. "Sophia," she said, "it's about Elena." The moment I heard her name, I felt a strange tension in my chest. It had been years since Elena moved to America, and from everything I saw online, her life looked perfect. Expensive dinners, luxury shopping, smiling photos in places I had only seen in magazines. She always looked happy, confident, successful. What happened? I asked quietly. There was a long pause on the other end of the call, and then my mother said something I didn't expect. "She's in trouble. Financial trouble." I didn't say anything at first. I just listened. "She's lost everything," my mother continued. "Her business failed. She has debts, a lot of debts." "How much?" I asked, my voice calm, even though my mind was already racing. Another pause. Then she said it. "Over $300,000. I leaned back in my chair and stared at the ceiling. That number didn't come from one bad decision. That came from years of careless choices, spending money like it would always be there. I thought about all the nights I had gone to sleep hungry just to save a few dollars, all the sacrifices I had made just to stay afloat. And now, somehow, we were standing in 2 completely different worlds. "What does she want me to do?" I asked. She needs help, my mother said quickly. You're her sister. You have money now. You can fix this. Fix this. As if it were that simple. A week later, they came to see me. My parents flew in from their town, and Elena came from America with her husband, Mark. I opened the door to my house and saw all of them standing there, looking tired, stressed, and uncomfortable. Elena looked different from the last time I saw her. The confidence was gone. Her eyes were heavy, her posture tense. We sat in my living room, the same room I had once dreamed of owning when I was struggling in that tiny rented space. No one spoke at first. The silence felt heavy, like everyone was waiting for someone else to start. Finally, my father cleared his throat. Sophia, he said, you know why we're here. I nodded slowly but didn't respond. Elena needs your help, he continued. This situation, it's serious. I looked at Elena, expecting her to say something, but she kept her eyes down, her hands tightly clasped together. How did it happen? I asked. Mark answered instead. Investments went wrong. Business losses. Credit cards. It all added up. I could hear the stress in his voice, but something about it still felt distant to me. And now? I asked. My mother leaned forward slightly. Now you help her, she said firmly. You have more than enough. You could pay this off and still live comfortably. Her words hit me harder than I expected. Not because they were surprising, but because of how easily she said them. I took a deep breath and looked around the room. This house, every piece of furniture, every wall, every detail, it all came from years of effort, sacrifice, and discipline. No one in that room had been there during those years. No one had offered support when I needed it most. I worked for everything I have, I said slowly. And she's your sister, my father replied, his voice tightening. I held his gaze. So was I. The room went silent again, but this time it felt different. Heavier, sharper. My mother's expression changed, her patience fading. Don't be selfish, Sophia. Family helps family. I shook my head slightly. Family didn't help me. Elena finally looked up, her eyes filled with frustration. So that's it? You're just going to watch me lose everything. I met her eyes, calm but firm. I didn't watch. I built something. You had chances I never did. Her face hardened, and in that moment, I realized something important. This wasn't just about money. It was about expectation. They believed I owed them, for succeeding. And deep down, I knew this conversation wasn't the end of it. It was just the beginning. A silence that felt heavier than any argument we had in my living room. After that day, when I refused to give Elena the money, they all left my house without saying much. No shouting, no dramatic scene, just cold looks and quiet disappointment. But I knew my family well enough to understand that their silence didn't mean acceptance. It meant something else was coming. For a few days, I tried to return to my normal routine. I focused on my business, attended meetings, and kept growing the company I had built from nothing. On the outside, everything looked the same. My income was steady, my clients were happy, and my life was calm. But inside, I felt a tension that wouldn't go away. It was like waiting for a storm you couldn't see yet, but you knew it was close. Then, one morning, it arrived. I was sitting at my desk in my home office, reviewing a contract worth $120,000, when the doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone. When I opened the door, a man in a formal suit stood there, holding a folder. He asked my name, confirmed my identity, and then handed me a set of documents. You've been served, he said. At first, I didn't fully understand. I closed the door, walked back inside, and placed the papers on my desk. My hands were steady, but my mind was already racing. When I opened the folder and began reading, I felt something shift inside me. It was a lawsuit. Filed in America. By my own family. I sat there in silence, reading every word carefully. They claimed that I had unfairly benefited from family resources, and that my success had come at the cost of opportunities that were meant for Elena. They argued that I had a moral and financial obligation to support her, and that by refusing, I had caused her further damage. They were asking for $500,000. For a moment, I thought it had to be a mistake. There was no way this could be real. But the documents were official, detailed, and very real. My name was there. Elena's name was there. My parents were involved too. I leaned back in my chair and let out a slow breath. I didn't feel anger right away. What I felt first was disbelief. Not because of the money, but because of how far they were willing to go. After everything, they didn't just expect help. They believed they were entitled to it. That same day, I called a lawyer in America. His name was Daniel Carter, someone highly recommended for complex financial cases. The consultation alone cost me $2,000, but I didn't hesitate. This wasn't something I could handle casually. When we spoke, I explained everything, from my childhood to my business, to the meeting in my living room, and now the lawsuit. He listened carefully, occasionally asking sharp, focused questions. When I finished, there was a brief pause. "Let me be clear," he said finally. "This case is weak. Very weak. But that doesn't mean it's harmless." "What do you mean?" I asked. "It means they are not trying to win based on facts," he said. "They are trying to pressure you into settling." That made sense. If I paid even half of what they demanded, it would solve Elena's problems, and they wouldn't have to face the consequences of their own choices. "You have two options," Daniel continued. "Settle quietly, maybe pay $200,000 or $300,000, and this ends quickly. Or fight it, and it will get public, messy, and personal." I didn't need much time to think. "I'm not paying them anything," I said. He didn't sound surprised. "Then we prepare for a full defense. My retainer is $50,000. "I'll transfer it today," I replied. And just like that, it began. Over the next few months, my life changed in ways I hadn't expected. The case moved forward in America, and even though I remained in Europe, I had to be involved in every detail. There were calls almost every day, documents to review, statements to prepare. But what made it harder wasn't the legal work. It was what they were saying about me. My parents submitted statements describing me as distant, selfish, and ungrateful. They claimed they had always supported me, that I had benefited from the family environment, and that I had abandoned my responsibilities once I became successful. Elena's statement was even worse. She described her life in America as pressured and unfair, suggesting that expectations placed on her had led to her financial collapse. She implied that I had somehow avoided those expectations and used that freedom to succeed. Reading those words felt strange. Not painful in the way I expected, but clarifying. Because for the first time, I saw exactly how they viewed me. Not as someone who struggled. Not as someone who worked hard. But as someone who owed them for becoming something they never helped me become. Daniel and his team built the defense step by step. We gathered everything: bank records, loan statements, proof of my income, contracts from my early business days, even records showing how I paid for my own education without assistance. Every dollar I earned had a story behind it. Every success had proof. "There's no ambiguity here," Daniel told me during one of our calls. "Your case is solid. The question is whether they realize that before it's too late." But I already knew the answer. They wouldn't stop. Because this was never just about logic or evidence. It was about belief. They believed I owed them. And I believed I didn't. As the court date approached, the pressure increased. There were attempts to contact me directly. Messages from my mother, short and emotional, asking me to end this peacefully. Elena sent one message too, just a single line. "You're really going to do this to your own family?" I read it once and didn't reply. Because by then, I understood something clearly. I wasn't the one who started this. But I was going to be the one who finished it. And I wasn't just defending my money anymore. I was defending my right to everything I had built, alone. A cold morning in America, the kind where the air feels sharp and everything seems quieter than usual. I remember standing outside the courthouse, holding a cup of coffee I hadn't even touched. I had flown in the night before, barely sleeping, not because I was nervous about losing, but because I knew this day would close a chapter of my life I could never reopen. The building itself was large and formal, with tall glass windows and wide steps leading up to the entrance. People walked in and out, each carrying their own problems, their own stories. Mine just happened to involve the people who were supposed to stand beside me, not against me. Inside, everything felt controlled and distant. My lawyer, Daniel Carter, was already there, calm and focused as always. He greeted me with a simple nod. "Ready?" he asked. "Yes," I said, and I meant it. When we entered the courtroom, I saw them sitting on the other side. My parents, Elena, and Mark. For a brief moment, it felt like time had gone backwards, like we were just a family sitting in the same room again. But the reality was much colder than that. Elena looked nervous, her hands resting tightly in her lap. My mother avoided looking at me completely, while my father stared straight ahead, his expression hard and unreadable. Mark looked tired, like he had already accepted how this might end. The case began quietly, with formal words and structured arguments. Their lawyer spoke first, presenting their claims with confidence. He talked about family expectations, shared opportunities, and moral responsibility. He tried to paint a picture where my success was somehow connected to Elena's failure, as if life had given me something it had taken from her. I listened without reacting. Not because it didn't matter, but because I knew words without proof don't hold weight for long. When it was Daniel's turn, everything shifted. He didn't speak loudly or dramatically. He didn't need to. He simply presented facts. Clear, detailed, undeniable facts. He showed records of my student loans, every dollar I borrowed, every payment I made. He showed my early income, small amounts that slowly grew over time. He showed contracts from my first clients, some worth as little as $50, proving that I started from almost nothing. Then came the larger numbers. My business revenue. My tax filings. The steady, consistent growth that led to my financial success. Everything my client has, Daniel said calmly, is the direct result of her own work. There is no financial contribution from the plaintiffs. No shared assets. No legal agreement. No obligation. The room felt different after that. Quieter. Heavier. Then came my turn to speak. I stood up, feeling every eye in the room on me. For a moment, I looked at my family, not with anger, not even with sadness, but with clarity. I didn't take anything from anyone, I said. I built my life from the ground up. When I needed help, there was none. When I struggled, I did it alone. And now that I've succeeded, I'm being asked to give away what I earned. Not because it's fair, but because it's expected. I paused briefly, letting the words settle. I don't believe success creates debt to people who weren't there during the struggle. And I don't believe I should be punished for standing on my own. I sat down, and for the first time since the case began, I felt completely at peace. The decision didn't come immediately. We had to wait. Days passed, and during that time, I stayed in a quiet hotel in the city, keeping to myself. I didn't check social media. I didn't answer messages. I just waited. Then the call came. Daniel's voice was steady, but there was a slight edge of satisfaction in it. "It's over," he said. "The case has been dismissed." I closed my eyes, letting out a slow breath I didn't realize I had been holding. "And there's more," he added. "The court ruled that they have to cover a portion of your legal fees. About $120,000. For a moment, I didn't say anything. Not because of the money, but because of what it meant. It was final. Later that day, I returned to the courthouse one last time to complete the formalities. As I stepped outside, I saw them again. My family. Elena approached me first, her expression desperate, like she was searching for something to hold on to. "Sophia, please," she said. "We didn't think it would go this far." I looked at her, really looked at her, and for a second, I saw the person she used to be. But that didn't change anything. "You took it this far," I replied quietly. My mother finally spoke, her voice softer than I had ever heard it. "We're still your family." I nodded slightly. "That didn't stop you." There was nothing more to say after that. I turned and walked away, not fast, not slow, just steady. Each step felt lighter than the last, like I was leaving something behind that I had carried for too long. That night, I boarded a flight back to Europe. When I arrived home, I unlocked the door to my house and stepped inside. Everything was exactly as I had left it, clean, quiet, mine. I walked into the living room and sat down, looking around at the space I had built with my own effort. No one could take this from me. Not legally, not emotionally, not ever. People later asked me why I didn't settle. Why I didn't just pay and move on. But they didn't understand what was really at stake. It was never just about money. It was about truth. It was about drawing a line and refusing to let anyone rewrite the story of how I got here. I didn't fight to win against my family. I fought to stand for myself. And in the end, I didn't just protect what I built. I proved that no one has the right to claim a life they didn't earn.